In the story of the evolution of nation-states across the world, the names of the persons who contributed immensely towards the emergence of such states naturally stand out in the annals of history. In the history of the evolution of Nigeria as an independent state, the name Abubakar Tafawa Balewa stands out prominently among his contemporaries. He worked assiduously with other nationalists towards the attainment of independence for Nigeria and also contributed his quota in laying a foundation for the smooth takeoff and sustenance of independent Nigeria. He emerged as the first Prime Minister of Nigeria. In this edition of Back in History, we bring to you the profile and the life and times of Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the man whose face is on the 5 naira note of the Central Bank of Nigeria till today. Welcome to this edition of Back in History. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was born in December 1912 in a village called Tafawa Balewa Village in present-day Bauchi State. The name of his village was added to Abubakar's name to read Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. It is recorded that Abubakar was his father's only child. At the time of his birth, Nigeria was under the colonial administration of the British, and Bauchi State was in the northern Nigeria Protectorate at the time. Abubakar Tafawa's father was Yakubu Danzala. He was of the Gere ethnic group. His mother was Fatima Ina, who was also from the Gere ethnic group. The young Abubakar grew under their parental guidance and learned the virtues of hard work, self-contentment, honesty, love for neighbor, and fear of the Almighty Creator. Like other children of his time, Abubakar was first trained in the Quranic school, where he learned how to memorize the verses of the Holy Book and also learned the teachings and virtues of the Islamic religion. At this time, Western education did not have much presence in the northern part of Nigeria. But following the continued administration of the Protectorate by the British, Western education began to be introduced in bits into the Protectorate. Some colonial administrators in the Southern Protectorate were thus deployed by the colonial administrators to the north with a mandate to add Western education to the religious education which was already in place in the north. Elementary schools were then built in the north by the colonial government. One of the schools that was built in Abubakar's hometown was the Tafawa Balewa Elementary School. And one of the first students to enroll in this school was the young Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Thereafter, he proceeded to Bauchi Provincial School. He thereafter went to the famous Barewa College. At that time, Barewa College was known as Katsina College. His student number was number 145. It was in this school that he met Sir Ahmadu Bello, whose student number was number 87. Ahmadu Bello was 2 years his senior in the school. At that time, Ahmadu Bello was known as Ahmadu Rabah. It is important to note that Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and Ahmadu Bello built a strong relationship from here and nurtured the relationship for many more years to come. They shared a lot in common. They had tremendous respect for each other and represented the finest form of friendship and comradeship. Katsina College, now Barewa College, is a school with a very rich history. In its early years, and for many years thereafter, the school had British expatriate teachers teaching several courses in the school. Some of these teachers were trained in Oxford and Cambridge universities and posted to Nigeria. Students were taught in English, and speech was an important part of learning process for the students. From information gathered from a publication of the Federal Department of Information in 1982 titled Nigerian Heroes, it is reported that, apart from excellence in English, the school was also a training ground for teachers to be posted to the provincial and middle schools within the then northern provinces of Nigeria. It is thus no wonder why Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and Ahmadu Bello, for instance, were impeccable and flawless in their spoken English, both in private and public places. In 1933, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa completed his 5-year training at the college and returned to his hometown of Bauchi. He was immediately deployed to teach at Bauchi Middle School. He taught at the school for many years and rose to become a senior school teacher. In 1945, an equally young teacher by name Aminu Kano was also posted to the school as a teacher. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa met Aminu Kano and became close friends and shared ideas together, including their desires to enter into politics. Abubakar later became the headmaster of the school and continued to carry on in the teaching profession without blemish, but with dedication to duty and honesty. In 1944, a decision was taken to send selected teachers abroad for further studies. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and Aminu Kano were among those selected for the further studies. Tafawa Balewa was sent to the United Kingdom, where he attended the Institute of Education of the University of London. He went about his studies and completed them on record time. He then returned to Nigeria and was appointed as the Inspector of Schools for the colonial administration. He performed his role creditably to the admiration of many and assisted immensely in the spread of formal education in the then Northern Protectorate of Nigeria. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa later ventured into politics and became very successful at it, coupled with his strong academic background. In 1946, he was elected to the Northern House of Assembly, and in 1947, he was elected to the Legislative Council. Abubakar used his position as a legislator to advocate strongly for the rights of the people of northern Nigeria. He formed a partnership with Ahmadu Bello, and together they founded the Northern People's Congress, NPC, as a political party to accommodate the interest of the North. Balewa was elected as the vice president of this party, following which he resigned his position as headmaster of Bauchi Middle School. His party went on to win the general election that was held in 1951. The applicable constitution at the time provided that the regional legislators shall be selected to constitute or form the Federal House of Representatives in Lagos. Balewa was one of the legislators from the north that was sent to Lagos. There in Lagos, he was appointed as the minister in charge of works, and later on he was appointed as minister in charge of transport. This was in 1952. It has been reported that it was during his time in these ministries that the designs for the construction of a bridge across the Niger was conceived. The design for the Kainji Dam was also conceived and drawn during his time as minister. At this time, Nigeria was still under British colonial administration. But the consciousness of several persons in the country, especially the educated ones, began to increase, and there was a build-up in the agitation for self-governance and freedom from British colonial rule. In 1957, Balewa's party, the NPC, won the plurality of votes in the Federal House of Representatives, and Balewa became the chief minister and designated prime minister. The move for independence then increased, with more and more dialogue with Britain for the grant of independence to Nigeria. Agreement was then reached with the British that Nigeria would be granted independence in October 1960. Balewa then took steps to unify the country in preparation for independence, and one of the things he did was to form a coalition between his party, the NPC, and Azikiwe's party, the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, NCNC. He also formed alliance with the national leadership of the Action Congress, but Chief Obafemi Awolowo was skeptical about the alliance and was not part of it. The country was eventually granted independence on 1st October 1960, with Abubakar Tafawa Balewa as the first Prime Minister of the new country. In his book titled Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Umar Fahad Muhammad has stated that Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was re-elected as Prime Minister in 1964. Balewa went on to discharge the functions of his office creditably and was loved by many owing to his unique approach to governance. He ran a government of inclusivity and appointed citizens across the country into the federal cabinet. During his time as Prime Minister of independent Nigeria, several countries in Africa were still under colonial rule. Balewa played important roles in the continent and worked assiduously with native African nationalists towards the securing of independence in the whole of Africa. He was instrumental to the formation of the Organization of African Unity. He played a critical role in the formation of the policies of the Pan-African Organization towards the emancipation of the African continent. Abubakar was a man of many honors. In January 1960, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was knighted by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as a Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire, thus officially taking the title of Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. In May 1960, he was awarded an honorary doctorate degree from the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom. In July 1961, he was also awarded an honorary doctorate degree of laws from the New York University. Abubakar Tafawa was having the best of time as Prime Minister of independent Nigeria, though he had pockets of regional issues to contend with. He was generally loved by many across the country and across Africa. He also maintained good relationship with Britain, where he had his university education, and the country that handed over Nigeria to him at independence. It is stated by several analysts that Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa had a bright political future in Nigeria, Africa, and the world, and would have remained a rallying figure in governance and politics for many years, even after he would have left office. Sadly, this future was destroyed on 15th January 1966 when the first military coup in Nigeria was staged by a group of army majors. In the said coup, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was kidnapped from his residence in Lagos by armed soldiers who were executing Nigeria's first military coup. He was missing for several days, and a search for him was ordered by the new military regime headed by Major General Aguiyi Ironsi. His family and friends continued to believe that he was alive, and that he was not among those that were penciled for elimination by the coup plotters. However, these hopes were dashed when his body was found 6 days after by the roadside at the border between Lagos and present-day Ogun states. It is reported that the body was discovered by Olusegun Oshoba, who was a young journalist with Daily Times. Olusegun Oshoba later became the governor of Ogun State. The corpse was taken to Ikeja Airport in the company of Herman Maiduguri, who served as Commissioner of Police at the time, Kam Selem, who was the Inspector General of Police, Maitama Sule, a long-standing associate of Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and two of Tafawa Balewa's wives, namely Laraba Abubakar and Jumai Abubakar, who accompanied the corpse as it was flown to Bauchi, where he was buried. Some records have stated that Bauchi had no landing facility at the time, and that the body landed in Kaduna and was then driven by road to Bauchi State for burial. The body was flown by two Indian pilots who were working for the Nigerian government at the time. This marked the end of the earthly life and times of the Most Honorable Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, a Pan-Africanist, independent advocate, a political strategist, an epitome of humility, and a true lover of Nigeria and a true lover of his people of northern Nigeria. Abubakar was sorely missed by many across the Federation of Nigeria, Africa, and the world at large. Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa has been immortalized in several ways since his death. His portrait is a face of the 5 Naira note produced by the Central Bank of Nigeria till date. Several streets have been named after him, and there is a university in Bauchi State also named in his honor, the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. The famous racecourse square in Lagos was renamed Tafawa Balewa Square. A devout Muslim, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa lived a modest lifestyle. It is reported that at his death, his major assets included his house in Bauchi and a 50-acre farmland, which was his best relaxation center whenever he visited home. The farm was located on the way to Tafawa Balewa village, about 9 miles outside Bauchi. It is reported that just as the present-day Obasanjo farms in Ota, Sir Abubakar Tafawa's farm in Bauchi was a major decision-making center in his time, and a lot of political associates trooping to the farm whenever the Prime Minister was at home from Lagos. Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa had 4 wives, and together they had 19 children. Tafawa Balewa was buried in what is today described as the Tafawa Balewa tomb in present-day Bauchi State, and his tomb has become a tourist site for several persons. The tomb had since been declared a national monument by the federal government of Nigeria, and the tomb includes a library and a mosque. Many thanks for watching this episode of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notifications on every new video.